Taking a look at the Highline stereo from Radial today. This is their line isolator, DI, and pedalboard interface that is specifically designed for people using digital modelers. And it's designed to work around some of the shortcomings that some modern modelers have. While a lot of modelers will be super compact, yet powerful and flexible, they lack things like balanced XLR outputs and the ability to manage stereo to mono rigs. This is where the Highline comes in. It will take a stereo TRS or TS signal and convert it with the Jensen transformers into a balanced XLR signal on here. You've got the option to have a ground lift on the XLRs. It also has stereo throughs on here, and you have the ability to sum either the through or the XLR outputs on here. Having a line isolator like this means that you won't get signal degradation on really long cable runs. It can also be used to isolate your modeler from ground loops and from phantom power that might damage it. So as something that would fit into a pro rig, it's essentially not only protecting your gear, it's also ensuring that it's operating at the maximum fidelity. I want to give you a couple of different ideas and some rigs which demonstrate how you might want to use something like this. I think it definitely fits into that category of gear that can be a great utility device, even though it's not a dedicated effect. Let's go. The first rig that I've put together with the Highline is very straightforward. I'm just using it to fix one of the shortcomings of the ToneX pedal, which are the ToneX pedal's lack of balanced XLR outputs. I'm taking the 1/4 inch outputs in stereo from the ToneX pedal into the Highline, and then I'm running the balanced XLR outputs of the Highline in stereo to my audio interface. I've got 3 high gain patches on here, the sort of thing that I would use for a typical Ragdoll gig. The first one has some stereo chorus and reverb. The next one adds a stereo delay, and then there is a mono dotted 1/8 note delay on the last patch. I'll run through each of them in stereo, then I'll press the sum button for the XLR outputs, and we can hear what it will sound like, sum to mono. That is one nice extra little feature on there where you can use it to manage the output of your pedal board. In this case, it's just a single modeler, and we get this. I like that I can just connect this and it immediately works. There's no advanced settings to go into. I don't have to hit a bunch of switches. I don't need external power for it. I just connect the patch cables to it, and then it's going to convert it to a balanced XLR signal on there. If you were using something like the ToneX One pedal as well, that's probably small enough where you could mount it on top of this, and then you've got a super compact all-in-one modeler with XLR outputs. Furthermore, if you were using the sum on there, I'd normally just use that in a case where I'm only going to be running a single XLR to front of house. So I'd just be using a single output on there. Having this at the end of your pedal board with the ability to instantly sum the signals to mono is very nice. It also has a through sum on there. So if you wanted to send stereo to front of house, and then you wanted to take these through outputs to an FRFR or a backline amp or cab, but you only had one of them, so say you wanted to hear both of your delays in that setup, you can sum the through output on there. So you could have a mono monitor and you could have stereo at front of house, Or I guess you could also flip that around and have mono at front of house and have stereo out of your own monitors. Another thing that's nice about this, the ToneX pedal doesn't have an effects loop on it, so I could add time-based effects in stereo after the ToneX pedal and then run the Highline at the end of the chain. Let's do that. I'm just using the ToneX pedal for the amp and cab simulation on here, so I've got a fat, clean sound that is totally dry. I'm then gonna add some Strymons to this. I've got the Dig, which is one of my favorite delay pedals, doing a dual parallel delay. Then I'm gonna kick in the combination of a cloud reverb and the cloudburst style ensemble effect on the Big Sky MX. Let's have a listen to that. That sounds super lush, and again, that just makes life easy where I was able to connect this at the end of the chain. No extra noise, no extra fussing around, all the levels are fine on there, and I'm able to add these stereo time-based effects in a studio style setup where I'm adding them after the amp and cab, so the stereo image is going to be maintained. This can also be super handy if you've got a unit that normally has a mono effects loop on there, say like the Friedman IR-J, but you wanted to use your stereo effects pedal. So let's have a look at how we'd set that up. This is a really fun what you see is what you get style pedal board. I've got a couple of my favorite Boss pedals and an MXR Phase 90 in front of the Friedman IR-J. Now the IR-J does have an effects loop, but the effects loop is mono. So if I wanted to use this Boss SDE3 in stereo, I'd need some way of maintaining the balanced outputs on there. Again, this is where the Highline comes in handy because I can just take the balanced output of the IR-J into input A of the SDE3, take the stereo outs of the SDE3 into the Highline on there. Now, like a lot of modern Boss pedals, the SDE3 is totally fine with hitting it with the balanced output from the Friedman, and we can do this. I also really like how neat and tidy this is with the Highline not being too large or too small. It sits on this top row of this pedal board really nicely along with the SDE3 and the IR-J on there. There's one more setup that I wanted to try this out with because it's something that I've considered gigging, except for the one shortcoming of not having balanced XLR outputs again. It's the Fractal FM3 and the VP4 together, but I'm connecting the output of the FM3 to the input of the VP4 digitally. So we're going to go FM3 for pre-effects, amp and cab tones, and then the VP4 for all the wet time-based effects in post, and adding the Highline stereo to the end of it means that I've got balanced XLR outputs. Now, the FM3 does have balanced XLR outputs. However, if I want to use that digital connection, I need to come out of the VP4, which is last in chain. It has balanced outputs, but they are not XLR outputs. That's where I can add the Highline stereo to everything. And then the advantage of this setup is I can, say, use the pitch block in the FM3 before my amp and cab if I want to polyphonically tune my guitar down. And then I could use a pitch block in the VP4, say, to add some stereo widening with a pitch detune, or I can run high quality reverbs or multiple versions of effects like the multi-tap delay. So let's just have a listen to a couple of tones. It may not be the sexiest piece of equipment out there, but the fact that this just works and it can do double duty as a line isolator and as a pedal board interface really is going to make this attractive to a lot of people. I think the measure of a good utility device is that once you add it into your rig, you'd feel like you miss it if you were to take it out of the rig. And the Highline, like a lot of Radial products, kind of fits that bill in there. It's also very well constructed. It's got that ka-chunk that when you hold it in your hand, you know you're feeling something that's very well made and just kind of oozes quality on there, even though really it's taking a 1/4-inch line signal and converting it into an XLR signal. Again, how sexy could that be? Well, I know a lot of you are probably looking for a unit like this, so I would love to hear from all of you. How would you use a device like this, and does this fit the brief for you and your rig? I'll put a link to this one in the video description, along with my Patreon and the music that I make with my band Ragdoll. Until next time, go and make some greasy guitar noises, and I'll see you then.